Well, ISDE started in Japan in 1979, and I was privileged to be part of the very beginning because I had planned to stay in Tokyo with famous Professor Akiyama, who was one of the leading personalities. And that coincided with the inaugural meeting, annual Congress in 1980, so it was really the very beginning. And we looked up at Japanese surgery because in those days they had already pushed the envelope, and the results were really very, very impressive. They had already mortality after esophagectomy below 10%, even 5%. Where it was in the West, mortality figures like 15, 20, even 25% were still, sort of the norm. So that impressed us very much, and so there was a lot of interest. They also developed techniques of bringing up the stomach, make the anastomosis in the neck, which many people in Europe would think totally impossible. So that really stimulated us to look to Japan. And so the next meeting was then in Rome, organized by Professor Castrini. And at that time, there was also a group in the West around one of the giants, Ronald Belsay, which used to be my mentor, David Skinner, another very dynamic and driving force in trying to sort of make the bridge between West and East. And so those talks definitely started at that time. And that was then finalized in '86 with a meeting in Munich organized by Professor Sievert, who was another driving force in realizing a international, global society, the International Society of Diseases of the Esophagus. In those days, with that iconic logo of the Mount Fuji, it was really a beautiful logo. And that resulted really in a big expansion. It was the explosion of surgical progress, and there was also a lot of money available. Professor Inoguchi, who was at that time becoming the president, he had a foundation, and so there were a lot of things going on. In particular, every year there were like 5, 6, 7 fellows who got a stipend from the foundation to go to big centers all over the world. There were also research committees. There was a central research committee overseeing motility disorders committee, reflux committee, Barrett committee, surgical committee. So it was really thriving. But then, in the 90s, things started to change. There was the introduction of the PPIs. Induction therapy came around the corner. There was the issue of the Barrett esophagus. There was more and more interventional endoscopy. And that also attracted, of course, attention from the medical industry. And we noticed that the foundation I was talking about was drying up. And so, well, more difficult times, and there was definitely an incentive to become more multidisciplinary, because until then it was strictly a surgical society. And that really happened in that momentum between the meeting in Brazil organized by Professor Pinotti with Dr. Denista as the president, and the meeting organized in Madrid by Professor Moreno Gonzalez. And at that time I was the president. So my presidency really saw a lot of change because the executive committee had to decide on a lot of things. So we made a decision that we become a multidisciplinary society with alternating presidencies of surgeons and non-surgeons. The statutes, the bylaws were rewritten, and the first draft was made by Mark Ferguson. And then there was this drive to bring the Secretariat closer to where the heavy weight from medical industry was. And so Dr. de Meester had sort of pushed this, and so during the executive committee meetings that we had in Madrid, so we decided that this Secretariat would come to Los Angeles so that there was more contact with the medical industry and trying to keep a good relation with the existing Secretariat in Tokyo. So these were really major things. Also the journal changed from publisher. So I can say it was pretty like for me a roller coaster during my presidency. But it all worked out pretty well, I must say. And you can see that over the next meetings, really this multidisciplinary became more and more important in not only getting sponsoring from the medical industry, but also in the content of the meeting and the quality of the meeting. And I think the pinnacle, really the big momentum, you can see here there is a record-breaking attendance, there is a record-breaking abstracts that have been sending in, and you see really that the sessions are well structured in a multidisciplinary way. So it has been a great experience to be part of this group from the very beginning, see how these things have evolved over the years, and how really they are reflecting what's going on, not only in esophagology, but also in other disciplines, of course. And so I'm absolutely delighted that I have had this great privilege to be part of the group, and also to have been chosen to serve as the president of the society.